Welcome back to the FODcast, the future of all things digital commerce. So last November, I was fortunate enough to attend the Next Commerce Summit in Amsterdam for the very first time, and today I'm pleased to welcome a guest I met there, André Sikborn Erixon, VP of Growth for Ingrid. Welcome to the show, André.
Hey, James. Nice to be here. Really nice to see you again.
Yeah, likewise. I still remember our conversation on the day. It's the introduction to Ingrid, which I found really interesting, and it's great to have you on the show to talk about delivery in a lot more detail.
Yeah.
But look, delivery has, I guess, quietly become one of the most powerful and possibly misunderstood levers in modern commerce. It's no longer just about getting a parcel from A to B. It's about trust, control, visibility, and whether a customer comes back. In this episode, we're diving deep on delivery experience, omnichannel, and shipping as a revenue opportunity. Before we do start, Andre, do you just want to give the listeners a quick insight into your background and career to date?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Andre. I'm VP Growth at Ingrid, as said. I've been at Ingrid for the last 7 years of my life, working in the intersection between building the product, meeting the retailers out there, and really solving and crunching the last mile reality out there, which has proven to be a battle in some ways and effortless in others. I come from a retailing background, actually. So I worked for H&M Group for 9 years, coming out of engineering school. So I have a lot of insights and knowledge into how to set up things correctly as a retailer, and that I could lever when I started at Ingrid. So that was really fun with moving over to, supposedly the dark side, but it's actually the fun side, right? So this is where you can actually help retailers build a lot of good things that actually help them not only survive, but also succeed, which is the fun thing, right? Today I work a lot around partnerships with Ingrid. We, of course, go to market, also continuously part of solving actual challenges for retailers. So with enterprise deals, I'm heavily involved. So, to stay up to date.
Yes, this Ingrid itself, the product sounds fascinating. I'm sure we'll learn more about Ingrid for those that aren't familiar with it over the course of the show. But the whole delivery landscape itself is, it's very much a hot topic. I feel like it has been for some time now, and I think it will continue to be. Recently, I had a guest from Revany on the show. We spoke about a number of different things, but a lot of that again was focused around sort of the customer experience with a focus on delivery and returns. So it's definitely a hot topic in retail right now, and I'm looking forward to getting stuck in with you today.
Yeah.
So I guess let's get going. Let's start with delivery experience itself. I mean, what is delivery experience, Andre?
Good question. But you just mentioned customer experience, right? So let's maybe start there. I think 15 years ago or more, the customer experience became a hot topic. And since then, everyone's been talking about it forever. When I moved over to Ingrid and we built the product, I think we needed a term to talk to what we were doing and trying to solve. And it naturally became delivery experience. So we coined these terms maybe 6 years ago after providing the first product. We kind of define delivery experience as all the aspects of the customer journey where delivery matters. So this is not only when you get your parcel or how it's put into your hand. We typically talk about delivery experience, how it starts already when you decide how to purchase your product, where to buy it, and when to buy it. Because in that point, or at that point, and with that decision, you have previous experiences or you have expectations, and then you currently in the digital shopping journey, you actually think about the delivery aspect. Also, if you get really poor tracking updates, etc., those are key pieces of the delivery experience provided to you. And that's why it gets messy, because delivery is then part of all parts of the customer journey in that sense when you have a digital purchase flow. So does that explain more clearly how it comes up in all parts of this journey?
It does, yeah, and it explains it more clearly, but I guess it complicates it a little bit more as well, given it's kind of entwined into pretty much the whole shopping experience, right?
Yeah. So this is something we preach and need to preach, evidently, all over, and also in our processes, right? So how explain the connectedness, but it's really easy if you're really someone or a company or a retailer for that matter that cares about your customer, because everyone knows what a bad delivery is, right? A bad delivery experience is very tangible for everyone. Everyone had it under the course of the last 10 years. It's developed, of course, but there are still so many bad delivery experiences out there. So this, I think, is the key connection we have with our like, community around us, but also with the retailers we work with, which are plenty nowadays.
Yeah. So you mentioned changing the term back to customer experience. I mean, when you're speaking to brands, how many of them kind of put delivery experience under customer experience? I'll be interested to know kind of how kind of educated your audience are around this so far.
Right, but it varies so massively, unfortunately, because some brands or retailers treat it really as a post-purchase problem, right? Still, or even a pure logistics matter, such as, well, anything delivery, well, that typically sits with logistics, right? As if, they don't know. Whereas typically the problem is that you don't have the tool set, you don't have the operated tools in place in order for you to kind of up funnel actually treat or impact the delivery experience. Or we talk to support teams, for example, that handles all the inquiries around where is my order, which is still to this date kind of 50% of all the inquiries, or like 50% roughly are related to the delivery experience, you could say. So it's still massive, and it's hard to meet everyone with the same kind of messaging, for example, because it differs per brand. Also, for related to customer experience, not all brands are on the same level in this aspect. So that's where we need to talk in different ways and talk very strictly like data with some retailers and talk very strictly around the experience piece with others. So it really varies out there.
I would imagine as well, depending on the brand, their position in the market, and kind of what they sell as well, would impact those conversations. For example, if you're selling to a DIY retailer, for example, it would be very different to a fast fashion retailer.
Yeah, for sure. Um, it's also defined by size, by the sheer size. So the impact on the numbers are so big when you have to process a lot of orders, right? Good way of thinking about it, I think, is um, starting with the customer. The customer. I see a lot in my conversation that people talk about, oh, our customer is this, our customer is that, and that's true for no brand out there. They don't have one customer; they have plenty of customers in numbers, but also in terms of personas or cohorts of how they act and treat them. And most brands develop products, right? So they think very deeply around how to develop this product and add a new line to their current assortment, for example. But when it comes to how they deliver all of that variety to the customers, they treat it as a one pipe or one type solution for all of them, as if the same kind of preference was not, different in the same customer group. And that's something we talk to a lot, right? So, you expect everyone to want their parcel in the same way, at the same time, with the same time span, and that is just not true. And that's something we talk to a lot about around all the data we have collected in the platform.
Okay, that's interesting because I guess I would make the assumption that the majority of people would want their deliveries next day. We're seeing a big
Exactly.
demand, aren't we, now for urgent? We're obviously seeing a big push on same day.
Mhm.
Personally, that's not a big thing for me, but I know a lot of people who do last minute shopping and try and get same day. But yeah, are there many out there that don't have a requirement for next day?
Yeah, for sure. Or I think you mentioned something important there. Is that the context of that they want something fast. What is that context? Is it true at all times? And we know it's not. But what's currently being offered, or the way people compete around shipping, is exactly that. So typically, retailers sit with a single carrier approach or few carriers in the pipe, and they think that price and speed is the only two variables that matter. So this sets the everything from the expectation consumers have to how you need to compete, right? So it's very stiff in that sense. Rarely we talk about the kind of what we see in data is like 20 to 30% of the customers that choose something else than the fastest or the cheapest option. Because most of our retailers work, of course, with a wider variety that meets all of the cohorts and the preferences out there. So they can actually see the data on how people select stuff, right? And then that goes for sustainable options, depending on what brand you are, for example, or out of home deliveries, as you know, going a lot in the UK or becoming more mature, at least, as compared to, for example, the Nordics where I live. So I think it's a spin up situation we're in some markets where it used to be like single delivery options, single factor decision models, which is not around preference or context. So context could also be, I need it now, but the same context is true for I need it later. Imagine if you're doing a renovation project for your home, for example. Is it now? No, it starts on Friday next week. When do you need the goods? Do you want like the tub delivered today? No, I have no place to place the tub like before Friday when the carpenter comes next week, for example. And this is often forgotten. And that relates to what kind of retailer you are. What is your offering? What do you sell? And the context that that provides for the end customer. So I think those are the conversations we're having a lot, right? So, and then it runs into complexity, and that's where we get involved.
Yeah, I find that really interesting. And just your note on the sustainable piece as well. I know there's a growing customer base that want to be as sustainable as possible, and they will pick, if there was an option flagged as this is the most sustainable option, whatever that might be, whether that be delivered to store, whether that be delivered to lockers. I speak a lot about lockers at the minute. I think they're great, and as you touched upon, they're really growing in maturity and gaining momentum in the UK. I personally think they could be the future of delivery, at least for the next kind of 10 to 15 years before something crazy probably gets invented that we can't even think about right now. But they're so easy to collect and to drop off as well. It's like 30 seconds, quick scan of the QR code, done. Like really easy. A little bit frustrating when there's not a box available, but I've only experienced that twice in about 2 years. So you kind of take the rough with the smooth, right?
Yeah, but I think that talks to what I said previously, right? That there are preferences depending on the situation, right? We used to say that it has to fit your life. And that's really the most profound way we can express it, right? So, and that is context. That's all about context. If we, we'll move into some kind of AI dimension in this conversation. That is why, Ingrid is on an obvious path to like bridge the preferences of the consumer to a reality where context of the purchase now changes. And that is meeting preference with and offering a delivery experience that fit, for example, the agentic commerce flow.
Yeah, it's a very interesting landscape, and I feel like talking about like fitting life and customer expectations. There's one part of the delivery process that really frustrates me, and I say it's not necessarily a common one, but for those businesses where you can order your product into store and then they charge you to deliver it to the store where they're already going to be going with a large order. I find that really frustrating. I'm like, so you want me to go and get the product? Cool, that's fine. I'm willing to do that. But you also want to charge me the same to go to collect it from the store than you would if you were going to deliver it to my house. Now, where's the sense in that? I might as well get it delivered to my house. So there's a few retailers that do that. And just this week, I went to buy some trainers, and I was like, I'll go to the store and get it. And it was like, nope, that's £5. So £5? No, I'm not doing it.
It's typically the other way around, of course, that you like want footfall in your store, so you price that delivery option as the cheapest one, for example. But then we go into something we'll talk more about probably, right? The omnichannel, like how you actually fulfill orders or not. Imagine that you would send this from your warehouse and it actually has a shipping cost. Then it ends up in imbalance and difficult setting for the retailer that then optimizes what? Well, for cost or like the balance on margin here for the shipping or for your customer experience. So what is their strategy? Right? And delivery strategy is something we talk to with all our customers. Their problem is typically that they can't work with various delivery strategies at the same time. So in your example, it's clear that your expectation on how to get your parcel is that it shouldn't cost because you're doing the work. For them, it seems that they're probably thinking about maybe some internal aspect of it can't cost this much to ship and how do we get it as cheaply as possible to you? So it's two things that just cannot be met currently in the way they are offering this service. But it brings up, like, if they're fulfilling it from the store and don't have the logistics cost, it's an opportunity to bringing down the cost. But an interesting example actually here that we have pioneered a lot with Swedish pharmacies is express pickup in store. Because then you have this time component, right? That says, we talk to there's a lot of preference about express and the time and fast. So when you merge like the possibility of fulfilling locally with speed so that the promise given to you is express, that's worth paying for a certain cohort. Maybe not for you. So then we wouldn't offer you express. We would offer you click and collect, and later. You're not prioritized because you're not paying, right? So then this balance becomes a thing in between like the customer preference and the retailer. And then in total, that becomes a really good business as well for retailers.
Yeah, and that's a cool idea. I guess going back to my point is, I guess my thought process is if I was to buy that from the store, they would need to replenish that stock from that warehouse anyway. So they're going to be sending those trainers to that store again.
Yeah.
So why would I bear the cost of the delivery when they would have to send it to that store, if
But
regardless,
to be
right?
honest, James, you're not the typical consumer. You're too ingrained in this industry, right? So you're thinking so many multiple dimensions more than the typical consumer, probably. But I totally agree with you that
Either that or I'm just a bit
it,
stingy, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Bit cheap.
No, but we hear it all the time, and it's really a good example of like, does that meet like in a way why did you convert there? Would be at the end of the day in total of volume of traffic, few customers would select that, would have a lower converting checkout. So, for example, when we were customers and they place our checkout, we talk a lot about to what delivery strategy are they placing there. They don't want to lose conversion. So in that situation, there should be another option that meets the cohort that is, cheaper shipping or free shipping for that matter.
Yeah. So I guess that kind of leads on to kind of the next topic we've already started talking about, which is obviously the fulfillment and omnichannel challenges. But I guess historically, then how have the retailers structured delivery and fulfillment across the different channels?
Well, I guess there is no more clear choice than also what I heard previous on this podcast, that the reference two channels that are actually completely separated was the key thing that made nothing happen for a very long time. I remember starting at H&M back in the day, where sitting in different places, completely different tech stacks, and making that work. It's been a slow moving dial over time. Today, I think the way and the retailers finally realized how to drive success here is by not seeing channels, building fulfillment flows that are united. We see an inception point for OMS is taking place right now. I think a lot of them are successfully deployed as well. So there is like one perception of stock, but we're so far omnichannel has only been this internal view of the business. Rarely I have heard, for example, ERPs stand at the barricades of, customer obsession, for example, or consumer obsession. And I think that's where the retailers has been all the time. And there hasn't been like matching systems or potentially intelligence layers to meet whatever they wanted to achieve. But now I think it's more clear that every purchase starts digitally, no matter if it's research or not, brand or not. Then what channel or touch point you decide to, go to for your research, etc. That is completely up to you, and you have to meet the customer in that channel. And this is where, on the complexity side of things, delivery got even more complex, right? So when we talk about the different channels, multiple warehousing type situations, the total headache was actually orchestrating the orders and making, optimizations in between our internal processes. Delivery was completely forgotten. So how we were supposed to present, however you would get your parcel, or the time frame that it would be if we decided to ship from over here instead of over there, was left as, let's solve that later. And this was an opportunity for us. So this is how we came in and kind of solved that. The integration held between channels and systems could be solved at least in with transparency to the consumer. So we do a lot of ship from store and locally, as I said, locally fulfilled click and collect. So store fulfillment options, so that it can be, the express aspect, so that the preferences again can be met by the big machine you have installed right now as a retailer.
Yeah, and I think the problem a lot of businesses face is there are companies that do this very well. I look in the UK, like Next, for example, I think are really good. Zara, they're also pretty good. They got a lot of hate initially, Zara, for making you do your returns in store, but immediately the product you returned, they would scan, put a tag on it, that'd be back out on the shelves within 25 minutes or so, and then kind of taking it from there. And it does allow that kind of omni-channel approach, like you mentioned. But the omni-channel word is interesting itself. I mean, that's been around now for a number of years, and I feel as though we're still not quite got a clear definition as to what it stands for.
No, I think it was called multi-channel to start with, right? Then
Yeah,
someone had to add another layer on top of that, and then it's just built on top of that. So I think in a way we can move on from that, because it's more of a technical problem. The question is, that technical problem, what value is it supposed to give? That's often forgotten, and also in our conversation sometimes. I think depending on who's responsible or how this falls into the role set up in your company, it defines the actions taken. So for example, as you say, returns in store, it's a great thing, very connected to footfall, etc. But it lands typically as, let's just put the things back in the store and try to sell them on a rack. And eventually the store doesn't look great, and it's like thinking halfway. And I think it's forgotten how much like digital purchases can be done if you just enable the the full stock visibility. And this has always been the main challenge, right? Now we're seeing really successful RFID rollouts across the industry, even for the biggest and maybe slowest brands. And then what that impacts in terms of sales volume online is massive, right? You will sell out your stores faster than you could previously imagine. Your reduction rates goes down. There's the efficiency of that. That's the key piece. And that also means like that you will have to be able to ship from each and every location, for example. So with some of our retailers, we do, for instance, split delivery is maybe one of the core pieces forgotten about omnichannel. You're like, who can allocate this order? Everything. You're like, this warehouse. No, not this warehouse. That warehouse. This warehouse. Oof, at least we could fulfill that order. We could accept it. When you enable the full transparency of all stock and can split the order to those various locations and fulfill it from those stores to the customer, that's where we have that availability explodes, and the possibility of converting more customers is then the obvious choice. And that's where delivery capability comes in. So that we do, for example, with Paul Smith, who's super successful with orchestrating split deliveries across their stores and warehouse. Then, of course, I think this is a forgotten thing which relates heavily to like our domain.
yeah. So that's a really good point, and I'll come back to that in a sec with regards to like businesses that are doing it well. You just flagged Paul Smith. I'm sure there's a few others as well. When we look at the business itself and setting itself up to enable itself to be able to do things like split deliveries and all the other bits that you just mentioned, how easy is it? And I appreciate that's probably quite a hard question to answer, right? It depends on a lot of points, the complexity of the business and so many underlying factors. But I guess, yeah, like what if you are a business right now, then what would you need to be looking at to be able to set yourself up to do that?
As an engineer, when people say it needs to be easy, I'm like, why? What about making profit was ever easy? If it was easy, it was short term, right? So if you're in it for the long term, it's probably more complex. And also when you sell SaaS services like we do, it's like, I want it to be easy. I'm not surprised. What work did you do on your side to rig yourself well? So I think with Omni, it's like the key thing you need to do is have central order orchestration, right? So we have a lot, like in our partner Fauna, there's a lot of OMSs right now that are doing things really well. They tend to get more business because of this struggle, right? Because at the end of the day, if you lack this capability, well, what can you do? You end up with like siloed verticals of where stock is located. It's also gotten more problematic where the sales channels has grown, marketplaces, drop shipments, etc. How do you orchestrate that efficiently? So I think that's one of the main points of investment, and that's not easy. That changes a bit of your core. You don't have you can have OMS capability as well. There are e-commerce platforms that have OMS capabilities, right? And they can successfully distribute orders and split orders without, and I would tell every e-commerce platform to do this currently because that impacts like total profit for digital brands, for example. But that's about investment and decisions. When you have that in place, then the reason for investing in that would be, what do we do then? And then the split component must be on the roadmap to understand that that's what drives the profit. Delegating orders is one thing, but full orders out of the total, like if a store could actually fulfill the full order, is a rare case. Then you need to have a lot of stock in the store. And that's like counter to all retail logic to like bulk up in your stores to provide online orders. In the start of that journey is actually splitting them so that you can fulfill them. Then you can intelligently like base the stock in stores more efficiently. So and when that's in place, that's where Ingrid comes in. That's where you can do really fun stuff around the delivery experience. Like, if we're out of stock in New York, we're going to ship it from London. The retail price is high enough, so it's worth shipping it. And by the way, actually someone wants this coat for like 5,000 quid. So of course we're shipping it from the London store to someone in New York, for example. That's a lot about omnichannel retailing as well at core.
Yeah. So the short answer is it's not easy.
I'm not good with short answers for complex questions, right? But
of course.
if you set out, but I mean, the role of retail is like that. Can I do omnichannel really easy? And then like, okay, just accept the returns in the store and hang them on a rack. And then they come back a few months like, the store looks crap. You have a lot of returns. Yeah. Maybe that's the problem. Why do you have a lot of, like, what was omnichannel trying to solve here for you? Footfall in the store. Very single metric driven, right? So if you have to invest, and if you do, it's very profitable. That's the easy answer.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good, a really simple way to break it down. So there we go. I've got that flagged for a little snippet to help with a promo. So there we go. So yeah, I guess from a customer's point of view, I mean that works well, but I can see why that wouldn't work well for the retailer themselves. So I think it's safe to say the technology's there. Everyone's got access to the technology. It's going to be a case of the business taking ownership as to what they do, the direction they go, and the investment they want to put into it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you need a good suppliers around you that don't just sell, but that actually care. So we don't go in and coach you on your omnichannel systems, right? But we care deeply about your omnichannel delivery experience. So that's the way we try to be. We don't charge consultancy hours. We sell a SaaS license. And that's what retailers need around them, right? An ecosystem of partners where they know things can happen.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned Paul Smith is a brand that's doing this really well. Who others come to mind that's doing it well?
I think we work with Nudie Jeans as well. They've been deploying ship from store around the globe for a long time for sustainability reasons. That I found super interesting, right? So you produce things in Asia or wherever you produce it, then you ship it to your warehouse somewhere, and then you ship it from there to the customer. And they decided to do it completely different. Shortest route to the local store, for example, in Australia, not shipping it to Sweden, and then shipping from the Australian store, overstocking the store or the dark store they have there to be fast in delivery from a local fulfillment point, which was their store, for example. So this, I think, is a key case that most retailers can execute on, maybe without the advanced tech, to be honest. So that's what Nudie Jeans is doing. Otherwise, I think
Nudie
there's
jeans, sorry.
Nudie Jeans. Yeah, that is
Okay, yeah,
maybe not too known, a bit known in the fashion segment, maybe. But I
okay.
think there's like a lot of verticals are doing omnichannel really good. Fashion might be the worst in a way. So for electronics, for example, I think super strong in Europe and in the Nordics for omnichannel.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank
Mm.
you. I think it's fair to say that when you have a bad delivery experience, it's often how a customer will remember the experience for the whole purchase and possibly their experience with the brand as a whole. Um, we've seen it a lot, and I remember hearing a phrase once, and it basically said that the last 20% of whatever it is that you're doing is how you remember that experience. If you go on holiday, for example, you're gonna have a great holiday, but if you're delayed on the way home, suddenly all the good things about your holiday have been forgotten about, and it just becomes this nightmare holiday that was awful. And do you know what I mean? The negative outweighs the positive just from the final 20%. And I think that echoes the same with delivery as well. If you delivery doesn't turn up, it might not even be the brand's fault. It could be the courier's fault, right? But you kind of share your frustrations with the brand, and you might leave them a bad review. So I guess where I'm going with this, Andre, is how closely linked do you believe like the delivery experience is with customer loyalty?
Oh, as just by your example, it's like 100%. And it's so weird to meet retailers still that says, but it's the carrier's fault, as if that solves anything for you as a consumer. Like, why are you then working with this, carrier or courier? So it's 100% related. And I think bringing just one link back to delivery experience here is expectations. So nowadays, everyone has an expectation on not only the product, but also how they get their parcel. They're not expecting frustration, negative sentiment. They're not expecting it to be late. They're expecting it to be on time. Or depending on how you actually offer things to them, they actually expect a delay. I assume you know a carrier locally in the UK that is always problem, always delay, theft, or things related to the courier. But it doesn't escape that it's 100% connected to the retailer when it comes back. Either it comes back as the claim, or as they just throw up of negativity on Trustpilot, for example. So what happens if I decide to buy the same thing again? Well, obviously, based on only the last piece of the journey, I would never come back again. And we heard this so frequently, even from retailers themselves sometimes, like when they would have ghosts shopped on their own site, for example, like, oh, this was horrible. We need to change. Then all of a sudden you need to change something when you've been doing the same for your consumers for quite some time. So 100% connected to loyalty, or I also try to think of it as, repurchase. When you call it repurchase instead of loyalty, it's really tightly connected to like, what experience did I have? Do I come back? No. Okay, repurchase 0. Loyalty could be you're still loyal to the brand, but I wouldn't shop from the brand's site in Sweden because their delivery from the US is so bad. So I would go to a local retailer instead and buy the same brand there. If we talk about brands, for example.
It is quite interesting, isn't it, when you think about it, how obviously the courier has a large part to play in the delivery experience, and I guess the brand itself will pick the couriers it wants to work alongside. However, it's amazing the impact that courier can have on that brand's reputation when it's really nothing to do with the brand itself, right?
Yeah, but it's I think a lot of retailers think of it as affiliation by non-choice, as if it wasn't
Mm,
an active decision on their end. They like kind of say, our 3PL only supports these carriers, so what can we do? And then like they wouldn't treat any other topic of theirs or something in their business the same way. And this is something we try to up. That's the product we build. So to keep them the tool set to break free of it so that they can either level the whole portfolio of the 3PL's courier portfolio or similar, or that they can flip totally and just go somewhere else because it's actually impacting their business.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I had a few examples over Christmas, which we know is notoriously a rough time for couriers anyway. But I recently moved house, and there are a few couriers that struggle to find the address. Don't ask me why. One day
No
they'll be
names.
there, the one day they're there, the next they're not. I'm like, you were literally here yesterday. Like, how have you not found the address today? And I felt really
Yeah.
bad because like, there was two occasions where the first one, luckily, they said we'll reattempt tomorrow, and I managed to get them on their chat agent, and I just said, don't worry about it. This was my son's Christmas present on the 23rd of December. Yeah, I know I left it late because that's on me, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, luckily I managed to get them to deliver it to a local store where I knew there'd be no issues, and that was fine. That was done on their chatbot. So actually, from a tech point of view, things worked quite well in that instance. But there's the second one, which was for just some gels for running, and they ended up sending them back to the retailer after one attempt at coming to my house, despite being at my house a couple of days before. And I felt really bad for the brand because the brand is now going to then have to ship it back. Well, they didn't have to, but they agreed to ship it back to me, reconfirm my address was correct, and then I did subsequently get them through the same courier. It makes no sense.
Rarely customers feel bad for the brand when they have a bad delivery experience. If you look at
Yeah, well, I think
Trustpilot or other places,
because I'm building a brand on the side as well, I
exactly.
feel like
You're
I feel their
empathetic.
pain. I know how
Yeah,
much
yeah.
delivery charges, right?
But it doesn't that make it even more weird that you know the pain and still it happens, right? This
Yeah.
is, I think, where our whole philosophy at Ingrid is like that's where we want to be and be helping retailers out, right? Because there's no good thing. No one is winning. That's what I wanted to come to. No one is the courier winning. They have to drive like at least two ways and getting, chargeback from the retailer. You're not winning. You're not getting. Your son is not winning. He's not getting his present, and the retailer is definitely not winning. Like brand impression down to cost, etc. So how can this be? That's what we like try to care for so deeply for so long time. So all the way from the delivery estimates that you talk about that might have been met or not, and the predictability of that is and also, for example, one of the main things we help retailers with is, of course, that you could have selected the store to start with instead of bouncing it back to a store afterwards. So you would have more trust because at the end of the day, you as a customer are living with the full load of anxiety all the time. So what promise was given and could it be kept? That's what the whole problem is to solve, especially from checkout, but also post-purchase.
Yeah, it's certainly a puzzle that we're not quite there yet with solving, I don't think. But guys, question I've got for you, you might say Ingrid is the solution, right? I'm sure.
No, I try not to talk about Ingrid, to be honest,
but question for you then, and there may not be one specific answer here, but obviously brands invest really heavily on customer acquisition. Why don't they invest the same amount in delivery experience, which is clear will have an impact on repurchase or customer loyalty?
I think because the data is not there in front of them. It's not clear enough, right? So at the end of the day, sales needs to come in and the cost of acquisition there is, even though it's rising, sales needs to go. So that comes first. What we are trying to do, or I think the whole industry is trying to do, is to move those data sets up funnel to e-commerce teams so they know how to invest wiser, right? We have we see a lot of change there in terms of that the appetite for investing in the loyalty and reoccurrence that I talked about before is a thing, but then what to invest in, and that's where is it delivery or not, for example, and it's also attained to some cost or change of strategy. For example, if you're talking about switching of carriers or couriers, it's a big topic because then all teams are involved. All of a sudden, both the ecom team and the logistics team have to be really close. And when they are close, that's when we see the changes, right? So instead of moving more and more money to Google and no new points of acquisition, we are trying to move data first so they can take insightful decisions in actually generating more sales. But it's also about generating more profitable sales. So I think our domain is highly connected to the margin aspect of things, right? So as you said before, you felt bad about the retailer that where you sent the parcel back, right? The margin, like any traffic you get to your site ends up with a certain margin currently, which is based on bad delivery experiences, returns, etc., right? Improving that margin that you have, like currently the costs are just spread out across all orders. Like understanding how that margin actually is reached currently. That's the first weapon we try to give retailers in order to understand, okay, you charge nothing for shipping and you have increasing costs for shipping and you have returns without exchanges. Okay, which needle do you want to move first? Because that would obviously impact your profit. And it impacts your profit like bottom line straight away. Or do you just want to keep on buying more and more expensive traffic? And then like, oh, okay, maybe we need to do both. Or we can invest here and improve profit, because typically they just see it as cost, another cost. So we try to align on that delivery relates to the last bottom line margin. And that's where it clicks for retailers and say, aha. And then we work business cases around how, and then set the path, right?
That's you touched upon a good point there, and something I know that you wanted to talk about today was around how retailers should look at the shipping as a revenue opportunity, basically. Too many of them treat it as a cost center. So I think you kind of touched upon it there about looking at the margins and how it can have a quick impact on it. Let's talk about that in a little bit more detail, because when we first spoke about this offline initially, it wasn't something I thought about a huge amount, but I actually find it really interesting and can really see opportunity there for a lot of businesses.
Yeah. No, so like, I'll try to make it super short as an answer first, and then before we go into the complexity this time. Who owns the current costs related to delivery? Mid to plus size companies are the logistics team. Logistics team are set to negotiate contracts with couriers, because that is perceived as the shipping cost. They deliver back to the e-commerce team, these are your options. So on the outset of things is 100% cost related, and that's the thing they give back to the e-com team. So they end up with few options, poor options, cheaper options maybe, but not better. So when you have not good options or can't offer variety to your consumers, then the preference that we talked about before cannot be met, right? So you will end up with always offering cheap or free shipping for typically bad delivery experiences. So what we talk to is, and know by data, is that when you meet the preferences, people convert more. They come back more, they are more loyal because their preferences are met. With preferences, if we look at like young people, for example, they, even in the UK, they don't prefer home delivery. They prefer out of home delivery because, I don't know, they don't want to meet people or something. I don't know the reason. And you don't need to know the reason behind it when you see the data, right? You just know that people have various preferences. When you have preferences, such as for the product, the gel you bought, you probably have a certain taste, or I don't know what it is. You want it with a certain time. You also pay for it. As with products, it's with shipping. You pay for your preference. There's, of course, elasticity in the pricing, so you can't charge anything, but you can charge something for preference. And at the end of the day, you can offer an option that is more white label, that says standard shipping. You don't know how you get your parcel. You have to be, the accuracy of the time window could be less. It could be the last priority, and you can optimize on the cheapest cost. So this is the way we help retailers orchestrate it. Offer choice, offer towards the preferences, and make people pay a little for it. All of a sudden, you have shipping revenue. So you don't need to move the needle too big. You can just start by actually charging something for the preference. And here it's typically express or standard. Like, what? No. What about pickup points? What about lockers? What about the differentiation that actually makes people choose something? That's where you add express as the most expensive, of course. Can even be break even towards cost, because the need you had there on Christmas, you would probably pay what it costs. That's how important express is sometimes, right? But you can offer faster delivery. You can offer next day delivery. You can offer home delivery. Those are the same way or method, but with various timing. You can charge differently for it. This is what we move retailers towards. And when they have such pricing strategy, all of a sudden they have shipping revenue. You can A/B test it, and all of a sudden it's not a cost-only topic. It becomes a revenue topic for which the e-commerce team can positively impact, right? And all of a sudden, as soon as you do that, you have an impact on profit. So this is like the school we call it delivery economics when we meet customers. Try to educate around it, but you need the tool set. but you need the idea or the belief in a way, right? That consumer have a willingness to pay. So we prove that with data, of course.
So there is clearly an issue with if there's too much choice, then I don't know what the phrase is, like choice paralysis, right? Where it's like you overload, there's too many options to pick. I don't know what I'm going to pick, and I'm not going to buy the product.
Yeah.
You would hope maybe at point in which they're picking the way in which it's going to be delivered, that would be minimal. But I imagine that can be the case. So I guess in your opinion, what is that the ideal amount of opportunities that a brand or that a retailer would offer its customer when it comes to delivery?
Yeah, good. We 2 years ago we were approached by the university here in Stockholm to actually research this. So they did. They took all our data, or the anonymous part of it at least, to look through if there was a conversion dimension to off, like a drop off essentially, or a minimum number of options you needed to have high conversion. That graph looks like at 3 options, it's start increasing, tops at 4 and then to 5, and after that they couldn't prove that adding more options visibly to the consumer then would improve the conversion rate, for example. So I think that's the data point we lean on when we say that roughly 3 to 5 is what you need, and that mimics typically that you offer multiple modes of delivery, such as home, pickup, click and collect, or whatever it is. And also addition of potential differentiation in speed, for example. So then that talks to the kind of preference aspect of meeting everyone. So that we kind of know. Also, what we saw in the same follow-up research was that even though you have 3 to 5 options, when customers come back to the same checkout situation, so in one of the biggest bookstores in Sweden, for example, they change option in 34% of the cases. And you're like, what? No, loyalty, like people are like habitual, like they do the same thing over and over again, right? No, actually, that proves another part of the context piece of the puzzle, right? That even though they come back to the same offering, buy the same thing, they select a different option. So that's where we know and can prove kind of that if you offer this kind of wide selection, you meet all the preferences, and that's the opportunity for driving this revenue piece, right? Because there is willingness. Still, 50% are cheap. They don't want to pay for shipping. We didn't teach them. They don't have a clear preference, or it's just, a bit macro as well, that people are we're cheaper now than we were 2 years ago, for example.
Yeah, that point around changing the delivery every time is interesting, and it makes sense, right? We live in a world where we may be at work in the office 1 or 2 days a week, and if you're in the office, you're not going to be at home to get your parcel. So maybe that day you want it into a locker so you can get it on your way home or whatever it might be, right? So yeah, I guess when you do actually kind of spend some time talking about it like we are, or sat down thinking about it, it's not just everyone always wants it to the house the next day, because actually that's maybe not where we're going to be. And we don't want to go through the hassle of having to get it redelivered or run the risk of it getting sent back or whatever it might be. We just don't mind going 1 minute out of our way now to go to a locker or to whatever it might be.
No, personally, I have such a strong preference depending on what I'm buying, right? So to make this super clear, like the main interest of the retailer is to understand, of course, that this impacts the bottom line. It's like free money coming back to you because you served your customer better. That's like the
No
period,
brainer, right?
Yeah, it sounds like a no-brainer. Comes from me, obviously, but that's what I preach, and I know, and we prove it all over. And we should charge in a different way based on how many millions like our retailers do on this. But that's the main thing. That's why I brought it up, right? That this is forgotten, this opportunity, and you can just try it out small, but it's really scary to change if you can't A/B test it. So this is the thing. But we're also not. We're talking a lot about the preference here, right? So this is where we need to do more research and preach more, I think. And the preference, if we're gonna move over to next gen e-commerce in a way, or digital commerce here, is that what is the context where this preference should be met somehow? At the end of the day, it's convenience, etc. But how do I express my preference currently on your site? Can I like write to you and say like, "Hi, I'm James. I have a son, and I typically shop in the current way, but please reload your website so I can shop in James's way." Not a thing, right? That's what personalization we're supposed to bring to the table, or automated workflows, or whatever it was. But we
Mm.
all know where that is going right now, when you think about it. So how do I express my preferences currently? Well, I just type it into the prompt so that I can get,
Yeah.
not all the things I'm not interested in, etc. Right. So this is the fun piece of our domain right now.
Yeah, it is. It is the most spoken about piece as well, right? AI and agentic commerce and agents and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's obviously a lot of talk right now around agent to agent shopping and obviously and all that kind of stuff, which obviously then has an impact on the delivery experience as well, right? So yeah, I guess if I'm being honest, it's not really an area I've thought about in huge detail. So I'd be interested to hear from you around. Let's start with agentic commerce and how it's different from traditional automation or personalization.
Yeah, I think the whole difference is the context. Before, you were forced into a flow that you were more or less dynamic, and you had to convert in that set context, right? And that's the whole switch. So, I mean, AI made it happen. Agentic commerce is the layer on top of AI, which makes it your context in that sense. It's your context to describe and set and formulate, and beyond that, you kind of delegate all the effort to the agent, right? And that becomes the intersection towards digital OMS. Let's see where it is and how it will play out. Shopify's play is super clear, right? Where we are part of it is that we open up so that your preferences can be met. We can explain. We're the intelligence layer for the retailer that can explain what can be offered in real time, and also over time, which we are deploying soon, that you can have your preferences set, right? So we would know how to answer to your preferences. And this is the whole big difference. Because sometimes I hear this, that agents will do your shopping. I'm like, okay, but where does that journey start? Well, with you
Mm.
expressing at least something and enriching it over time. So it's not, we don't lose control in a way. You could also argue we gain control by being very specific and setting the context. And this, I think, is that talks to what we do and the delivery side, because if we get context, we know everything how to serve you. Yeah.
I guess that goes down to the quality of the prompts from the user, right? Which I imagine would be rather varied if you were to do that right now. But what are the what are
No, but
the key aspects that a retailer should be thinking about in this agentic commerce era?
yeah, I think it's a lot about, again, a bit surrounding yourselves with both people internally that really care about the next paradigm. Of course, it's not only agentic shopping; it's how you work internally, and how you work internally must be. Before, we used to talk about like big data and etc. That should have been solved by now in a way, right? Now we need, actionable software on top of that data, or orchestration layers that optimizes for you. So we see agentic commerce being in the hands of the consumer towards you as a retailer. In the same way, you need to stack up. So you have the agents working for you towards that agentic commerce requests towards you, right? So this is what all companies in the SaaS industry obviously want to do currently, including us. So we're deploying MCPs, and we're looking at the UCP protocol, of course, to ensure that we and our customers are prepared. And we are well positioned to do that because we have all the data, and we, on behalf of the retailer, to be able to process requests on delivery options in any context, in enriched context, right? First, you say, I want to buy the following. And then when you see what you get, the following, but with bad delivery options, you say, I want it on Friday. We can answer to, can you have it on Friday? No, you can't, for example, so that this accuracy and is received on the other side. It seems like a black box, when the customer is doing their shopping over someone else. But I think the capability you need to be as a retailer is the core thing. So if you don't
Okay.
know when your parcels are going to be delivered and how accurate you can be about time, if you're not accurate about time, you will be scoring poorly. I mean, on the other in the interface in agentic commerce, like, oh, you have 3 to 5 days delivery. Well, I have for this product, I have 2, 1 day, next day, pickup point. So many before you that can deliver this in a better way. So this goes to that you can really optimize, fulfillment and operations on your end, and then you need the layers in place to answer to the prompting commerce paradigm.
I think I follow you.
Yeah,
I think I follow. Yeah. No, it's
but if
I just find it
maybe
fascinating now what we can do with the technology.
I think if you ask a retailer right now, like, how would you answer on detailed various context towards OpenAI about your deliveries, they would be like, I don't know. But we would try to, I would buy something, or we would code, or there's no answer really. So that is what companies like us are building right now. We want to enable them to restore their whole delivery configuration. So we know everything about, if you give us a product, we would know exactly when it can be delivered based on their configuration. It's that simple. So we can answer to that question for them. And the more data we have and the more transactions we have, the more we would know about your preferences for the purchases with this retailer. So then we are this intelligence layer on top of the kind of stack on the retailer to answer these questions.
So maybe I'm going a little bit off here, but I mean, ultimately, we could find ourselves in a world where you have the AI agent in place of the human doing it, shop it for it with an intelligence layer that's focused around the human and its preferences. You have the same with the retailer, and ultimately we've got an AI to AI shopping experience based on how well each AI knows its owners, in this case the customer and the business. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
That's pretty
So,
nuts, right?
uh, but as long as, I think we're thinking about handing over all the control. We're handing over the controls in terms of actually, the effort, doing things, researching things, looking through stock and stock levels in order to get the parcel to James that wants it the 23rd to his son. On his okay, then I will rule out this carrier because of carrier performance issues. And I will prefer, it's so multi-variable and parametric approach that it's just perfect for AI to solve for us. So in that sense, that's the paradigm we're moving into. And this means that, as you said, okay, today we feel poorly about our prompting, but it's not like it's going to be unclear for us, because it will be follow-up questions to make it, you didn't say that you're in your summer house but your agenda says that you're in the summer house for Christmas, so you're not at home, right? No, I'm not at home. That's the consumer side. And the retailer side would be, the summer house. We only have this delivery option, but we can send it with express actually to this. I will decide that this retailer will be the proposed or preferred one if the agent will be shopping with us. That's the detail level aspect of parametric shopping, or whatever it could be called in English. Is that correct word?
I'm not sure on the correct word, but it sounds pretty cool, and
Good.
I like it. I feel like my information and knowledge overload right now. My brain's on fire. So, but I would like to wrap this up with a few kind of quick fire questions, Andre. So, I've got a couple listed down here that I'd like to go through. Try and keep the answers kind of short and succinct where possible, as it is designed to be slightly quick fire. But in your opinion, what will the delivery experience look like in the next 3 to 5 years?
I mean, to
Looking for
make
a
it,
bold claim here.
I want a bold claim. No, if you've been in this industry for quite some time, I think shopping might change a lot, but moving real goods, we shouldn't forget that. That's a forgiving idea for carriers, of course, but we will see higher accuracy for sure. So they are investing heavily in being very accurate. But in the real world, that's difficult. You're not at home, so that won't change. That you're not at home won't change, right? But there will for sure anyway be higher accuracy and changing that higher success rate, essentially. I think the post-purchase aspect that we didn't talk too much about today must improve, like how I can redirect my parcels. You found your own bot there, but that should be so standardized in taking actions on your parcel, This, I think, this is, more fluent. You will talk to bots so that you get the parcel at all times, again, to success rate. But it is a bit slow moving. So I would like to see drones. I would higher automation. I would like to see fun ways of getting my parcel where it's too standardized. I think it's commoditized to a too big a degree. Yeah, but I think those are the things.
I think drones would be cool.
Returns is such a hassle still. It needs like a lot of investments are being made because everyone hates it, right? So in 5 to 3 years, that's also solved with speed, and I get my money back straight away. I don't want to wait. You know me, you trust me. I always return correctly. Why do you hold my money for like 1 to 2 weeks when I could be shopping for it? It's just something we want to eradicate.
Yeah, no, interesting. That was one of the points we spoke about a couple of weeks ago with another guest. That kind of holding the money after the return is really frustrating to a lot of customers, right? And big
it's not even a
opportunity
risk,
missed.
as I see it. Yeah.
Particularly if it's a loyal customer that always returns their products. Maybe I get it first time round, I get it.
You would never treat a customer like that in your stores. That's if you're a retailer that has stores, always think how you think about it in the store and bring it to digital.
Yeah, I like that point. Very good. That's another snippet as well. So if retailers could change one thing about their delivery strategy, what would it be? Or what should it be, should I say?
Yeah, focus on accuracy in your checkout, for sure.
Yeah, accuracy in checkout.
Accuracy and meet your customers' preferences. If you don't know them, research them. It's not that difficult. Look at Trustpilot. Start there.
Okay. Final question then. What's the one metric retailers should track if they really care about delivery experience?
Oh, it's fun. I talked to this one with one of the founders yesterday to what is a good answer to this one? I was dreaming up a bit like, you have NPS, right? NPS for promoter score. We were thinking about like net delivery score. I think we want to get to something like that it's very obvious what the quality of service that a brand offers for their delivery experience. I think that would be a key thing to introduce. Currently, it's like number of support tickets, etc. We talk about lifetime value. We try to measure loyalty, but like the delivery piece, as we realized over the years, it just impacts all of them at the same time, right? So we're thinking about that. Let's hear more about net delivery score. Yeah, NDS. It's going to be a thing.
Okay.
I'm going to talk more about it.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've got your work cut out making that a thing, but it sounds like a good idea.
Versus friction, like James happy versus James ordering the 23rd. That's the difference. Is what we want to like flash out.
I mean,
but
I feel like
also shipping profit.
Carry on. Yeah. Shipping profit. Okay.
Shipping margin. I think. Look at your shipping margin. I know it's in the reds. So like, what are you doing to improve it? Like if you can't impact your shipping margin, then you have a unscalable business model. So if you have no tooling, call me.
I actually thought when I asked that question, your answer would be margin. But I like the NDS score, and I feel like retailers don't have enough on their hands right now. So let's give them another metric to track. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that would be fun.
But cool. All right. I think that's a good place to wrap things up. Andre, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, James. Pleasure.
Yeah, it was good fun. I enjoyed that one. Obviously, we spoke heavily about delivery experience, the cost of deliveries, successful, failed, customer convenience. I think there's a lot of takeaways there. So yeah, thanks again. And as Andre just mentioned, yes, I'm sure they will, right? I'm sure they will. But as you just mentioned, anyone that's interested, I'm sure you can catch Andre or his team on LinkedIn. We'll make sure we tag you guys when we publish the episode. And in his words, hit him up. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the show. I'll see you next time. Thank you.
See you. Bye.